This woman was admitted to the asylum in 1904. Her story is truly fascinating, so first we need to go back to the beginning. Her name was Minnie de Bot, and she was born in 1857 in Birkenhead, Cheshire. Her father, Thomas, was a water manufacturer employing 3 men. In 1885 she married John Preston Worrell, a master mariner also from Birkenhead. John had twice been widowed, and had 1 son from a previous marriage. They had a son Harold in 1890. In 1901, Minnie was boarding with the Lawrence family in Yatton, Somerset. Shockingly, John was living as husband and wife with a woman named Elizabeth in London, and had a daughter Florence in 1899. Minnie was admitted to the asylum from Long Ashton Workhouse on May 19, 1904. The report said Minnie was married and had been postmistress at Clavering Post Office, Yatton in Somerset. She was suffering from mania brought on by excessive drink. Minnie had threatened Mr. S. Lawrence and his wife, with whom she lodged. On admittance, Minnie was fairly nourished, confused and resistive, has no idea of time or place, and cannot give rational answers to questions. She says she will do murder or commit suicide. In 1898, she had been admitted to Brentbury Hospital in Bristol, and since her discharge she had been well behaved and rational up until 3 months ago, when her drinking increased. June 1st, 1904, she is demented and has no memory, and thinks she is in Bristol. At times she's noisy and excited, does a little sewing but takes no interest in her surroundings. May 11th, 1905, mania, she shouts and is very noisy, and raves about the state of the Russian woman. Noisy and sleepless at night, and can be inclined to violence. January 19th, 1906, shouts away in ward and out in airing court. Incoherent and rambling, still noisy and sleepless at night. May 9th, 1906, is now quite incapable of employment, has delusions of persecution. Her insomnia and noise at night continue. April 27th, 1907, has been in bed with a severe bout of colitis, suitable diet given. December 19th, 1907, has suffered from a seizure. December 20th, 1907, Minnie died at 10 p.m, aged 51. In the presence of Annie Shingleton, night nurse. Cause of death, organic brain disease. Her son Harold died in 1905, aged 15. Her husband John died at sea in 1915, though there are no descendants left to remember her. She is buried in an unmarked grave at Mendip Hospital Cemetery. So rest in peace, Minnie, you will be remembered. Who Griffin Lily was sent to the asylum in 1915. But to know his story, we need to go back to the beginning. He was born in Bath, Somerset in 1880 to John and Clara Lily. His father was a tailor and they lived in Westmoreland Cottages. The 1901 census lists Who as having nervous debility. In 1911, when Who was 30, it is shown that he was employed in light duties at home and listed as not strong. Who was admitted to the asylum in 1915 at the age of 34. Having been found rambling and quite unable to take care of himself in Bath. On admittance, he said he was part of the Spanish Armada and would never surrender. Who had previously been in the asylum and discharged as recovered in 1898 and 1901. His notes state that he was very suspicious of the stethoscope, but on admittance the doctor notices that sounds suggestive of tuberculosis are present, and that he is in poor health and very thin. In March 1916, Who is described as excitable, talkative, incoherent, untidy and idle. In April 1917, it is noted that he is losing weight and his chest condition is no better. In June 1917, he is confined to bed in the sick room. His family have been notified. On July 17, 1917, Who rapidly became worse and sank and died at 11:20 p.m. in the presence of head attendant James West. Cause of death, tuberculosis of the lungs. Who was buried in the Mendip Hospital Cemetery, in an unmarked grave. So rest in peace, Who, you will be remembered. This is the amazing story of Alfred Langford, who looked after 2 boys during his time at the asylum thinking they were his sons. He was born in 1862 in Midsummer Norton, Somerset, to first cousins Robert and Betsy Langford. In 1891, his brother Farnham died from a hemorrhage to the brain after a boxing match in a field with friends. Alfred worked as a miner, a common occupation in the area. He was admitted to the Somerset and Bath Lunatic Asylum on April 28, 1906, suffering from congenital mental deficiency. On admittance, Alfred is described as well-nourished and of a ruddy complexion, but it's noted that his head is hydrocephalic. His palate is broad and low with no teeth in upper jaw. He is of limited intelligence and imbecilic from birth. He says that he and his father argued over food, and his father struck him on the head and he lost a lot of blood, and bled like a pig, and that is why his father is in prison. But there is no evidence of a mark or scar. Alfred spent his time looking after two young patients in the ward, Charles Philpott and Thomas Reed, washing and feeding them, regarding them as his sons. He is weak-minded and simple, but cheerful and willing. July 1907. Amiable and easily managed. He would be helpless if left to himself. July 24th, 1908. On being awakened this morning, he showed marked weakness, was helpless and lost in mind. April 1910. Now with a very limited understanding and speech, he recently struck another patient, Edward Davison, on the head with a brush and cut it open as he didn't like the way Davison was scrubbing the ward floor. April 1913. Congenital mental deficiency. He is feeble and simple-minded. February 1915. He is getting weaker and is now receiving close care and nursing. Alfred died on March 31st, 1915 at 4:55 a.m. in the presence of night attendant A.J. Milne. You may also want to know about the two young boys. Thomas Reed was admitted at the age of 4. Reason for admittance: idiocy from birth, but he'd become unmanageable at home in Evercreech and put into the workhouse at Shepton Mallet. He died aged 15 from tuberculosis. Charles Philpott was from the Bath Union Workhouse and admitted with epilepsy at the age of 11, and he died aged 17 from organic brain disease. All three of them are buried in unmarked graves at the Mendip Hospital Cemetery. So rest in peace, Alfred, Charles and Thomas. You will be remembered. This man was admitted to the lunatic asylum in 1914, and today I will tell you his story. His name was Daniel Palmer, and he was born in 1854 in Garsington, Oxfordshire. His father, also called Daniel, was an umbrella maker, and in 1861 the family lived in Peterborough. Sadly, his father died in 1864 when Daniel was only 10 years old. By 1871 the family had moved to Clewer in Somerset. His mother was an umbrella maker. She must have taught Daniel everything she knew, as by the time of the next census Daniel is also an umbrella maker. Daniel never married or had children, and by the time his mother died in 1910, he was living alone. He was admitted to the asylum on February 9, 1914. Reason for admittance: melancholia and organic brain disease. He was aged 61, single, 5'4" and 8 stone. No friends or relative addresses known. He had an ulcerated stomach and cirrhosis of the liver. A poorly nourished man says he attempted to take his life as life isn't very sweet to him. He has taken a whole bottle of sulfonal tablets and cut his forearm in a determined attempt to kill himself. His neighbour, Mrs. Biggins of Clewer, says she had been looking after him for some time and considers him mentally very peculiar. February 16th, 1914. He is morbidly depressed and complains of agonising pain in his stomach. He sleeps very badly and says he is tired to destroy himself, as life just isn't worth living. He is on a light diet, which he takes quite well. March 9th, 1914, says his inside is like a fire, but he has not vomited since admission and is now sleeping better. October 1914, physically he is becoming weaker. A note has been sent to Axbridge Union Clerk as he has no friends or family. December 1st, 1914, he has not rallied much and lies in a feeble state. He is having seizures. He is nursed continually now. January 1st, 1915. He became worse today and died at 11:52 a.m. in the presence of attendant Herbert Seymour, aged 62. Cause of death: organic brain disease. He is buried in an unmarked grave at the Mendip Hospital Cemetery. So rest in peace, Daniel. You will